see where it's listed for technical issue. I can see where it's listed. Sure.
We on now. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Tabortown Council meeting for February the 8th, 2021. We'll call the meeting to order and ask for an adoption of the agenda. Councillor Tams.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on the delegations. The Indigenous Concepts and Solutions Incorporated, that's Novacrete. And looking through the information on the agenda, it looks like we're being solicited, and this is not a delegation that's coming forward from administration for advice or to approve a new product. It's like we're dealing with a salesman, and have this delegation gone to administration and to our purchasing and gone through them first, because I think it would be ill-advised the council to entertain it. It sounds like we're having a salesman come to present something to us without administration asking for direction or advice on it, is how I look at that. So I would like to strike the delegation from this meeting, if I could, please.
Mr. Orwa, you have some comments on that?
I think that will be council's direction. If council wants to do that, then we will have the agenda will be adopted as amended if council decides to do that.
Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I would agree with Councillor Tams on this.
All right, just for clarification, I have had some discussion previous with our previous CEO about this. This is the second time they were on our agenda. Now we have one local individual that's supposed to be attending today for the 5 o'clock, and two, I believe they're scheduled to be on the Zoom format. So I guess I would just open up to some other suggestions, but this has been set up some time back. And again, it's just a standard delegation format with some options for potential town use down the road if we so choose to go further. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's the historical length of a presentation? Is it about 15 minutes?
That's correct. It's subject to some question and answer period as well, but that's right. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a tendency to agree with Councillor Tams, but since it's kind of a short notice in the setup, I would suggest perhaps we could have him on for no more than 50 minutes in total. No more than 50 minutes in total.
All right, we can certainly set that out as well there. They are generally told that to start with as a rule, but we could certainly mention that today as well. And again, subject to any question and answers that may come from council as a whole. All right, so any other comments, questions, comments?
Your worship?
Councillor Stravas, yes.
Yes, I would like to, for closed session, I'd like to put on the agenda just an open discussion with council in regards to council code of conduct under section 24.1 and getting advice from officials in regards to the freedom of information and protection of privacy act. This is, your worship, this is just an open discussion about whether or not our current code of council conduct meets all the requirements.
General code of conduct discussion, open-ended, with some suggestions subject to section 24 of the FOIP Act, did you say?
Yes.
All right. All right. Councillor Tams.
With that, Mr. Mayor, after hearing the other councillors and stuff, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the agenda as amended, adding 9.3 to closed session, general discussion on code of conduct, and item 7, the delegations being informed that they have 15 minutes max.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Bruin, you had a question?
Yes, I'm sorry, we're addressing Councillor Stravas' motion or thought there. Why not have it in an open session? I don't see the point of having that in closed session.
This is Councillor Stravas asked. Councillor Stravas, I believe that was subject to the advice from officials 24 of the FOIP Act.
Your Worship, if council, I'm okay with having it in open session if council so desires. I think we need to have a frank discussion whether or not, an open discussion whether or not our current code of conduct is adequate, or whether it needs some strengthening from behalf of administration with council.
I guess just to clarify, Councillor Chavez, you did indicate closed session ask and/or subject to Section 24 advice from officials.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we're going to be asking questions, in regards to conduct, different items.
Okay.
I don't want. I don't know if something might be revealed that might not be good in open session. It may be just as well to be done in closed. That way, an open and frank discussion can be had.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question for Councillor Stravas. Is this something that you believe needs to be dealt with tonight? My thought being that if we are asking questions of administration, that perhaps we could give them some time to prepare based on the item, and then we can have a better discussion if we have all the information. Would you be
Councillor Firth, I understand what you're saying, but administration works by motion, so we would need to put a motion forth for them to bring this back to council, with some direction. So we would need to have we would need to have a motion in order to direct administration to prepare this information and to review it.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Firth.
Right, and I understand that, but couldn't you also ask the mayor to have it put on the agenda for the next meeting as well?
Well, I guess that's possible, but I think we can, maybe we'll just put this on open session. I'll do it in standing items to put it on for the next agenda, and that administration bring us back the code of conduct and whether or not it meets today's code.
Thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me that we'll go around the mulberry bush a little bit here. I would agree with them. I would be in favor of the motion as presented by Councillor Tams. And I think in closed session, we could actually give direction to administration in a short period of time what we'd like to see done to revise the present council code of conduct bylaw or not, and just have a brief discussion, not a long drawn-out one. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Once again, we do have Councillor Tams amended a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to item number 3, adoption of the minutes. Item 3.1, minutes of regular meeting of council January 18th, 2021. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, His Worship. Meeting minutes from January 18th is before you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Garner.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 18th, 2021 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 3.2, minutes of regular meeting of council January 25th, 2021. Mr. Orwa.
Again, His Worship, January 25th minutes are before you for consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion. I move that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 25th, 2021 as presented.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to request a slight amendment, please, to the minutes. Resolution 34, 2021. This is the regarding organizational review. It says that, moved by Councillor Beckering, that council requests administration. I think that word request should be deleted and inserted by direct, please. I think that was the intent of the motion, certainly, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Firth would require a friendly amendment to add that. Is that fine?
I would expect that friendly amendment.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Friendly amendment motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, on to item 4, business arising from the minutes. Item 4.1, use of municipal reserve options. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, His Worship. So this is a follow-up of council request to investigate some one agreement here, and I would request Ms. Monks to provide some details.
All right, thank you, Ms. Monks.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Council.
Good afternoon.
So at the January 25th, 2021 regular meeting of Council, a motion was made directing administration to investigate entering into an agreement with Mr. Bemby. Administration has investigated the issue and provided Council with 3 options. Mr. Bemby lives adjacent to a small pocket park east of Highway 864 along 40th Avenue. He has requested to be able to purchase a small section of the Municipal Reserve, MR, or to lease it in order to construct his fence out to the park to park his personal items in that area. The initial designation of the park was done due to the fact that there's a mine under the lot and it was not able to be developed for residential. Near the area runs a public utility lot, which some owners have entered into a right-of-way agreement in order to utilize the space, while recognizing that an irrigation line runs underneath it and they will not be compensated if there's a need to dig up the site. In order to sell a portion of this lot, administration would first require direction from Council to dispose of the municipal reserve dedication of the site. This would require several steps which have been outlined in the request for decision for Council's consideration. The costs in order to create the new parcel and sell it to the homeowner would exceed the amount Mr. Bemby is prepared to spend on the lot. Those fees would not be recovered by the proceeds. The process is also outlined in your RFD and is estimated to take 3 to 4 months. Because the area is designated as MR under the Municipal Government Act, the municipality is not able to lease it to Mr. Bemby. However, as has been done in other situations, an encroachment agreement may be entered into. This would allow use of the site and for the homeowner to encroach with a fence into that lot. With Council's direction, administration can enter into an encroachment agreement. The fee is $300 and the legal costs to have the agreement drawn up and registered on title. Additionally, the irrigation system and any other potential shallow utility would need to be relocated at the homeowner's expense. Council may choose to do neither of these things and direct administration to prepare a letter to the homeowner advising him of their decision. So administration is just seeking further direction from Council in order to resolve this item to your satisfaction.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Ms. Monks. Thank you for your research and your work. Job well done, in my opinion. I don't know what Mr. Bemby's option 1, 2, or 3 he prefers, but obviously option 1 and 3 are not preferable. So I would suggest option 2. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion.
Right, I guess any other questions attached to that option number 2? All right, Councillor Beckering. Councillor Bruin.
Could you bring option 2 back up onto the table, please? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, through to administration. Would Mr. Bemby be amenable? Have you suggested the encroachment agreement to him?
Yes, he would find that acceptable.
Okay.
Just for clarification, is that, I think it was $1,000 cost. Was that was correct? Was offered for whatever is involved. Was this more than that $1,000 cost for this option?
So, sorry, through
Sure.
Your Worship. The cost for the encroachment agreement is $300. Mr. Bemby would have to engage in a lawyer to create that agreement. We do have kind of a draft that we typically use, and the lawyers here in town use those. The irrigation likely will have to be relocated, so the costs I think were estimated at $400 plus the wage for 2 staff for 1 day. So those would fit essentially into his, or just over his $1,000
dollar range roughly
estimate of what he wants to spend.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for council's information, when the council is prepared to make a motion, all discussion stops until the motion is crafted, presented, and then discussed, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'll prepare then. Council directs administration to enter into an encroachment agreement with the owner of Lot 34, Block 3, Plan 901158 for the construction of a fence and use of 50 square meters of Lot 33 MR, Block 3, Plan 901158. Cost for this agreement and any relocation of irrigation shallow services to be paid for by Mr. Bemby.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Bruin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the predicament Mr. Bemby's in there. I have neighbors that wish to park on the vacant lot beside them and have been fined because they're doing this. Actually, I would have to go with option 3 on this. What's good for one is good for the other. We've told other people that have done this that we don't agree with them parking their equipment on our property, and I believe we should stick to it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to item 5, bylaws 5.1, proposed bylaw 21-2020, lending bylaw, Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, His Worship, before you is the administration is requesting second and third reading to the lending bylaw. The first reading has already gone through. We went through the advertisements and there was no appeal. So the time has elapsed. So we brought it back to council for second and third reading.
All right, thank you. Councillor Tams.
Mr. Mayor, hearing that there was no objections, I'm prepared to make the motion that council gives second reading to Chamber of Commerce Building Project Lending Bylaw 21-2020 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. And someone prepared to make the second motion required. Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council gives third and final reading to Chamber of Commerce Building Project Lending Bylaw 21-2020 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Councillor Garney, had a question?
Nope. No
All right.
question.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, on to item 6, action items. Item 6.1, Coffee with Council 2021. Mr. Orwa.
This is a request that was made by council that this be brought back the first meeting in February, and Megan is already here to address that with council.
All right, thank you. Ms. Brennan.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
So, to haunt you, I am back with the Coffee with Council. You requested it back in November for it to be brought to this meeting. Unfortunately, COVID is still a thing. So, we're recommending the motion number 1 in your alternatives, which the last I checked this morning, step 3 from the Government of Alberta's Path Forward will ease indoor restrictions. So until that time, and there's no time frame on it, we're asking council to consider a sort of a deferment using alternative motion number 1. We'll bring it back as soon as it's possible to do so, to have coffee with council for your decision.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Brennan? Councillor Tams.
Absolutely agree with your motion, but also within this request was an offer from the library to use the meeting rooms that I think needs to be looked at and maybe thought about, but I like the plan of using the library also because now it's in a public building, and I think that's a good thing, but I do agree with your option 1 to bring it back, but I think we should also look at using the library when we can.
Thank you. Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, through to administration, I do agree that we should defer this until we're actually allowed to meet. But would it be helpful for planning purposes for you in the future if we made a decision as to what we'd like to see when we are able to meet?
That would certainly help, then that we can get it done more quickly. So in that vein, I would say that Parkside Manor has been very good to us. Obviously, it's a town-owned building. We're one of their rentals. The library has offered this as a public building. They would, as it says in your agenda, they have the facilities able to host. So really, it's up to council what building you want. They're both absolutely adequate.
All right, thank you. Someone prepared to make a motion. Anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Tams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that council instructs administration to bring back the Coffee with Council item to the next available council meeting after restrictions on indoor gatherings have been eased and or lifted by the government in Alberta, and to investigate the use of the library building.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.2, 2021 volunteer recognition. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, Megan is still on the hot seat, so just continue.
Thought you got rid of me, but here I am. So, COVID is still a thing. It's unfortunate, but for the safety of our volunteers, with the restrictions, we cannot have a volunteer banquet. But in the case that the restrictions were lifted, it's not going to give your administration enough time to plan a proper event that the volunteers really, really deserve. So last year, council so kindly donated the funds that were budgeted for the banquet to give to the volunteers. We're asking you to do the same. The feedback from the volunteers was shock and surprise at first, and then an overwhelming gratitude. And as you can see in their agenda, our volunteers are extraordinary. They gave it back to organizations that help our community or good causes. So we imagine that will be the same vein again this year. So we'd like to give you the option if you'd be willing to do that for them.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion that council directs administration to cancel the 2021 volunteer recognition banquet with regret, and that council allocates the budget funding for the 2021 recognition banquet to the volunteer groups at $100 per member to be used as the group sees fit.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.3, Aquatics Project Operational Funds. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, I can see Ms. Phillips is already here to address this with council and the request out there.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Good afternoon.
In 2020, we budgeted for some upgrades to some aquatic operation systems, and due to COVID, there was some delays from the supplier end. So we're asking council to allow us to transfer $31,000 from the 2020 aquatics operating budget to operating reserves to be used in 2021 to fund this project. It's underway this week. It just was delayed. It was expected to be done at the end of last year, but.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Firth.
Questions, but I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
I move that council directs administration to transfer $31,000 from the 2020 aquatics operating budget to operating reserves to be used in 2021 to fund the pool project work in progress.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.4, uncollectible accounts receivable over $500. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, His Worship. So as per our policy, any write-offs above $500 must be brought to council. Now in 2020, we do have some 2 items here that has gone through collections, and we've tried all possible means to collect the money, but we've not been able to, and we're requesting council to write them off. One of them is just the first 800, if you scroll for me to just 2 items, to a total of 1,400. The attachment. But anyway, the first attachment is $800, and that one came from motor vehicle collision. And we go after the individual goes after insurance, but in most cases we've struggled here and we are not able to collect this from 2018. And then the second was just some employee benefits that did not go through well, and the employee is no longer here. So we are requesting council to write off these 2 items.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Mr. Orwa, if we write it off, does that mean all avenues of collection cease, or is it still possible that we could collect it down the road?
We might still collect down the road. I've seen cases whereby even 5 years later, somebody shows up with something, and of course, that will still be recovery. So it's only that it's met the threshold from 2018, and now we have to write it off. But again, there's a possibility that we can still collect.
Mayor, thank you, Mr. Orwa.
All right, thank you. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Garner.
Mr. Mayor, I can make that motion that council approves the uncollectible account receivable in the amount of $1,424.26 to be written off as of December 31st, 2020.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 6.5, information for council. Mr. Irwa.
Yes, we do have some information there for council, and the first one is a letter that was received, and I would request Ms. Vanham, if you're on the line, to address this with council, please.
Good afternoon, council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good afternoon.
Perfect, thank you. So yes, Mr. Orr was correct. There's been correspondence received from the MD of Bonnyville, and it looks like that municipality is contacting other municipalities within Alberta to determine if mayor and council sees a need for stronger Western advocation through FCM.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion. Councillor Brown.
Mr. Mayor, to make a motion now, we're just doing item number 1, I believe. We're not accepting all of this yet.
So yes, the second one, probably I would ask Mr. Shea to address and maybe answer any question that came out from the traffic committee meeting.
All right, sure, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Shearer.
So it's a traffic committee meeting. Minutes are there for your review to accept or ask questions about. So if you have any, please bring them forward.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising there? Councillor Tams.
Really have a question, Mr. Mayor, and this might sound a little bit odd, but the yield sign that you put on at 4606 60th Avenue and attached to the sign pole, can we maybe angle that slightly different so I don't hit my head on it when I'm shoveling my sidewalk?
Yes, this should be a required height, so we can look at that.
It's low. It was just attached to the thing, and I happen to live right there. I agree with the yield sign. I don't have that, but it's kind of low. It was just hung below that, not above it, and I hit my head on it when I shovel my sidewalk. So please change it.
All right,
On purpose,
thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bruin.
I think that should have been a citizen's request, not councillors. But no, the other thing I was wondering about, I heard rumors of a school zone being created in front of the Ace Place. Is that true?
We had a special meeting of the traffic committee just last week. That's not in this minutes. It'll come to the next meeting. We would like to create a school zone at Ace Place. They've had numerous complaints of speeding. People not stopping, going through that area. So we agree with that, and we decided to move forward with a school zone. Now remember, a school zone is only active after you, from 8 a.m. to 4:30, school days.
Mr. Mayor, through to Mr. Chair and maybe the traffic committee, I'd be much more content with a pedestrian flashing lights or something. I don't think we need to slow that street down to 50.
I had trouble with the flashing lights in that area. We've already had one ripped apart. But yes, it's got to come forth in the traffic bylaw, and I think Ms. DeBona will be bringing that next council meeting, and that will be in the traffic bylaw for you to comment on or change or whatever your needs are.
So we still have a chance to...
Yeah, it has to come in the traffic bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Point of order. This is not a discussion that's on this agenda, so move on, please.
All right, fair enough. Okay. Any other questions related to either of those two items? Councillor Towns.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, in the letter that we have from the Municipal District of Bonnyville, they asked 3 questions, and I wonder if we need to answer them as a council or if the mayor could answer them on behalf of our council. The 3 questions and send a correspondence back to the Municipal District of Bonnyville, because I think their questions deserve to be answered.
All right, thank you. Any administrative comments related to those questions there? Are we up on those particular items?
Well, in this case, we just brought it for information, but if council wishes to answer them, then probably official letter will have to come through to be signed by the mayor on behalf of council.
Just again, it's just, I guess it would just require a bit of research as far as exactly what they're asking, correct, as far as what Tabor's input and or take on that might be. All right, thank you. Councillor Thames?
Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion that council accepts this information, council accepts the material received in this information item as information and directs the mayor to answer the questions to the MD or the county of Bonnyville and answer the 3 questions contained in their request.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Thames, if the mayor would answer the question not to the majority of council's liking, what happens then?
Fair question, absolutely.
Absolutely, great question. Maybe directs the mayor to draft a answer and bring it back to our next council meeting for approval. If I could change that.
All right, so which part are you changing?
That the mayor answers the 3 questions and bring the draft back to council for approval at our next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Carrie, could you maybe read that back after I confused everybody?
Ms. Van, can you read back that motion, please?
Thank you for the opportunity. Council directs administration to have the mayor answer the 3 questions and bring back a draft for the next meeting for council's approval.
All right, thank you.
Also accepts the material received in this agenda item as information.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously. All right, dealing with item number 2. Just an information only required for that particular item.
I believe, Mr. Mayor, in my motion, we covered both of them. That we received it as, because they were both for information.
Okay, you were speaking strictly related to the letter from Bonnyville, so that's my question about that. Am I wrong with that? Anybody? Councillor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the motion by Councillor Tam did cover the addition.
Cover the second part?
Yes,
okay.
it did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We'll move on then. On to item 6.6, standing item, council requests. Mr. Orwa.
Sorry. I'm sorry to back up to the last item there. I believe we need 2 motions there because it's 2 different.
That's what I was questioning, but it just Councillor Beckering just indicated he felt that was covered.
I'm not sure that's right.
Read back.
Sorry, read it back. Did you say?
Mr. Mayor, yeah. In that case, if some councilors don't agree with that, let's have read it back and see if we can clarify that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Van Ham. Would you be able to read that motion back once again, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through to council. That Councillor Towns directs the mayor to answer the 3 questions and brings back a draft for the next meeting for approval by council and accepts the information received in this agenda item for information.
All right, thank you. No, I believe that does cover it. I would agree. That's got it all covered there. Councillor Towns?
And I think so too, because both of them items were in the same agenda item.
Okay, we'll accept that. All right, on to item 6.6, standing item, council request. Mr. Orwa.
Yes, it's worship. So this is an opportunity for council to give administration any direction, and you can see the whole group. I can see the senior leadership team already here to answer any question that you may have, and probably just go through the items out there. I think the first and the second have been there for quite some time. Those are related to Japan. And then the next one, of course, again, that will also be still there, pertaining to assisting council in doing the chief administrative officer's review. And then the next one on public works, where administration was directed to contact a golf club to help remove a number of trees. Is there any update on that yet? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Then the second one, I think most of them are, the last one I think has already been answered this morning by, earlier today by Ms. Monks. But before probably I put it back to council, I think I would call upon recreation facilities, probably Ms. Phillips, to address this issue of ice, because there's been a lot of information here. Could you maybe just assist council to understand what's going on out there?
So last Thursday at the rec board meeting, I made the recommendation, or we had a discussion around removing the ice as step one of the restrictions were so restrictive that none of our youth groups were able to use the ice. And the rec board supported that. And then on Saturday, the government of Alberta made changes, and they are now allowing groups of 10 for sports groups only to do training. So 1 coach and 9 kids on the ice. So I reached out to all of our youth ice users, and all of them want ice time. If anything, they want more ice time, and we'll take advantage of weekends. I believe I have it's about 50 hours on the large ice and 30 hours on the small ice. So my recommendation has changed, and I'd like to get support, partly because we had discussed it at the rec board level, that we will continue and book our ice surfaces and get as much use as we can. Planning on extending the summer, if again council agrees, extend the small ice season by 1 week, so that we could book right up till the end of March 28th, for our youth groups to utilize the ice.
All right, thank you. Councillor Towns?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and attending that rec board meeting when you don't think you have any opportunity to use ice, and then all of a sudden a couple of days later it changes and you have the opportunity to use the ice. I think even if it went back to rec board, they would say absolutely keep the ice in because we have an opportunity to use it. And I think that rec board made a recommendation to remove the ice, and I think council needs to say no, in the change that's occurred, we don't have to anymore, and I'm pretty sure rec board doesn't want to take the ice out anymore.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Beckering.
Regarding, we're discussing this item still, Mr. Mayor, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, item 444, 2020. I think can be deleted, in my opinion.
4.4 or 44, 2020? Yes.
Your Worship.
Mr. Chavez.
Yes, I think that motion, that item regards to is setting a procedure for doing a review of the chief administrative officer, and I think what we should do is we should carry through with this and have a certain procedure put into place so that each council that comes in doesn't do their chief administrative officer evaluation differently. I think there needs to be a procedure that is standard that all councils could follow in the future.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruno.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Strobus, what was wrong with the last procedures we did? I thought we actually did fairly good evaluations for a CEO.
Your Worship, I'll respond to that. The time that I've been on council for going on to 8 years, it seems like the procedure has been changed several times by different mayors, by different councils, and I just think that a procedure should be adopted by council that is followed through and carried through, so that there's something written solid on a go-forward basis.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councillor Stravas on that. I can't speak to what other councils or what other mayors have done, but in my time on council, while the procedure that we used wasn't horrible, but I don't know that it was that informative, and it would be prudent to have a consistent procedure in place, I think, for the benefit of council and for our chief administrative officer.
All right, thank you. Councillor Towns.
Mr. Mayor, I would agree with that too, and I also agree with Councillor Beckering that the standing item as it is there at 44/2020, and it puts audit committee for the responsibility to find this company, bring it back, and that this was, when this was put into place, it was in December, so we could have this for January, February. And I believe that we still need this, but I think that in the situation that we are in, we need to strike 44/2020 as complete, that this or move, but we still need to put a process into place, and I think we now have the opportunity to do it slightly different instead of the audit committee, and we have some time to do this, but I totally agree that we need a template and a procedure in place, but now we have some time to work at it, and not that it has to go through the audit committee to find this. We have time to do this through administration, through council, and come at this differently. But as that standing item is, it's almost redundant but I think it needs to be done, but slightly different than how that standing item is in place.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? So with that was by way of motion. So with what you're suggesting, Councillor Towns, I believe you're talking a new motion, but that would also have to, this motion would have to be rescinded if we're going that route.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with that, and I would like to, in my mind, I think we should rescind 44/2020, and at the next council meeting, if it's okay with fellow councillors, I will bring a new motion and standing item to look at I don't know how to craft that motion right now, but how to put this. I'd like to put it back on the burner, but I'd like to rescind this one today.
All right. So any questions or comments related to that suggestion? Councillor Bruin.
I'm sorry, this has no deadline, I don't believe, does it? January, February 2021, why don't we just extend it? That's a thought to council, leave it there, but extend it to March.
Well, we are still into February, and we one more meeting in February as well. So if Councillor Towns follows through with what he suggested, that could certainly be done at the next meeting. This one rescinded and/or a new motion in place to cover the new requirements. If we're all on board with that, Councillor Towns.
Mr. Mayor, I like what Councillor Bruin is saying, but this motion also includes that the audit committee be responsible for investigating and select the company to complete this. And I believe at the moment, because we have acting interim CEOs and we have council, that the need and the rush for it to be January, February, I do believe that we need to come up with something, but that the audit committee doesn't have to be responsible. We can also go through and get some advice from our administration at this time as to where we can look at this. And I think it needs to come back with some investigation from administration and also coming back to council for some more advice. So my biggest problem is that, it was appointed to the audit committee because we were in somewhat of a rush. And I think if we rescind it, bring it back and use our administration's talents and the capabilities to help us guide us through this, we could come to a better situation is my concern.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roa.
Yes, I think, His Worship, I believe the correct procedure would be to rescind this motion and give administration new direction.
That's right, I would agree. If we're going to go that route, there would be in need of some form of motion today. Councillor Bruin?
Well, I'd like to extend this to April 31st, 2021.
Councillor Towns.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we rescind motion 4444/2020 and just rescind it and we'll bring it back. Administration needs a motion to rescind it, so it's gone. We can bring it back anytime. So my motion is to rescind motion 444/2020.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Bruin?
Perhaps friendly amended to table this for further meetings, or is that appropriate?
Councillor Towns?
I don't believe so, Councillor Bruin. I think we need to rescind the motion because that's the motion that's on the table. That's the motion that administration is working with right now. We need to rescind this, bring it back, and give them a motion to carry on. So I don't want to drop it. and I'll guarantee you I'm bringing it back, but I think for administration's sake, we need to rescind the motion on the table.
All right, thank you. A motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Good, thank you. So just for clarification, you were looking to do that at the following meeting, some kind of
Bring it back.
stand item
I
suggested? Okay.
Yeah, I need to do a little
Just so
thinking and
administration knows
research.
what to expect. All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
All right, back to any standing item, any other new standing item? Suggestions from any council member whatsoever? Seeing none, Councillor Stravas, did you have anything?
No, it's all good, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. Then I would ask for a motion to adjourn until our delegation begins at 5 p.m., please. And we reconvene at that time. Councillor Firth.
I move that we adjourn until 5 p.m.
Right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. do we have Councilor Stravas on the line as well? Okay, Councilor Stravas, you with us there?
Yes, I am, Your Worship. I'm good.
All right, thank you. Just to clarify, we do have our guests on the line as well. All right, if we could reconvene the meeting, please, and we have our delegations today. Item 7.1, Delegation Indigenous Concepts and Solutions, Nova Crete. Mr. Orwa?
Yes, His Worship. So with us here is Mr. Murray Gardner, and he'll be presenting to Council. And maybe Mr. Gardner, probably if you just step forward and probably introduce, I think you have two of your colleagues online already. We'll be calling in.
I hope so.
Okay.
All right, just for clarification, just if we could just make sure the meeting is, or the presentation is roughly 15 minutes plus some question and answers as a normal procedure. Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They're in Edmonton and it's even colder there, so I hope their technology's working today. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to come in and talk to you about Nova Crete. The two individuals that we hope are going to be on the call here are Brian Spielman and Ken Moland. Brian is the distributor for Nova Crete Canada. He's the fellow that would be doing the estimates and working with the engineers on soil sampling and that kind of stuff. When they do a project, they have an engineer on site every day to follow their processes to make sure the quality control is maintained. Ken Moland is the CEO of Indigenous Concepts and Solutions. Incoso is the sales and marketing arm for Nova Crete Canada, which is where I come in as the sales manager for Incoso. I'm working on projects like Town of Tabor and others. We are in discussions at various stages with just about all the provinces from BC across to the Maritimes, as far as Northern Canada. We have been approved by the Northwest Territories government to do a test section of highway up there. And we're, like I say, we're working with the transportation departments of just about all the provinces, and looking for others, obviously, as well. Are the guys dialed in there? Or?
Mr. Spielman and Moland, do we have you on the line?
I'm here. Ken Moland speaking.
All right, thank you. Mr. Spielman, are you with us there also?
No, Brian has not joined us yet. He has been tied up, but he will be shortly.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if you heard my introduction. I didn't say anything bad about you, Ken, but if you want to kind of take it away and talk about the product until Brian's available, so we don't use up any council's time. It's
thanks, Murray.
They're busy, so.
Thank you, everyone, for an opportunity to give you a rundown on the product and how it works. Just a little bit about me. I'm the CEO for Indigenous Concepts and Solutions. We, as Murray said, are the sales and marketing arm of Nova Crete Canada. Done an exceptional job on getting the information out to the various products, as he did out to the various provinces and territories. As he did say that we have a project approved in the NWT to do a test site up there. We are being shortlisted by the city of Calgary for some work there. And we are in conversations with Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, etc., and Ontario. The product itself is a green soil stabilization product that works in conjunction with soil or with cement powder. The process is one where we do not remove any material from site. It is a process that soil samples are taken and they are sent to the lab in Germany to do the analysis, and they will come back and tell us what the ratio of cement and Novacrete powder are to be applied to get the results that you're looking for. And then the testing it takes into account the type of soil that we're applying the Novacrete to. So if it's boggy or muskegish or just solid rock or whatever it is, the soil samples give the test results, and from that we can we determine what the mixtures are. The advantages, I guess, to the product is there's no removal costs. It reduces the amount of material that goes into landfill if you're using the conventional methods of parking lot or road construction and repair. The costs, reduced costs of construction to start with. In conjunction with that, the repair and maintenance costs are significantly lower. There's no cracking. It comes with, and it can be, depending on the use, you can adjust the load-bearing capacities of the parking lot or the roadways. And it comes with a 5-year warranty for not cracking. The one project that we have done that we've had significant testing on is the Sobeys distribution warehouse in Edmonton. In 2018, we redid the warehouse parking lot. Now, there's over 1 million trucks a year, heavy food trucks, go over this parking lot, and in the last 2 years there hasn't been a blemish other than the odd scratch or mark on the asphalt from the snowplows removing the snow. Other than that, prior to us going in and doing it, they were repairing that parking lot every 2 or 3 months from the abuse and the use. So it's a product that it's not new to Canada, but the original distributor back in 2014 did a very poor job and also was a very poor businessman. And he made promises and did things and didn't follow up. And as a result, the parent company from Germany removed his distributorship. For the last couple of years, Novacrete Canada, which is overseen by Brian Spielman, has had the distributorship, and we've been, as a marketing team, going around to all the provinces and explaining to them the benefits of the product. The initial approach back in 2018 when we were asked to do it is we thought that the best approach would be approach all the road builders. And the road builders were not very receptive to the product. A number of them were familiar with it, but they didn't want to use the product because they didn't want to lose the maintenance and repair work that they were getting every year from the methods that they were using. So the beauty of this product is that it moves it's flexible. So you're not going to have the frost heaves and the settlement that you have with conventional road construction. It's very easy to do the work. The process is a milling process
of the existing roadway or parking lot. The cement is put down, the Novacrete is applied, it's then remilled. There's a water truck that comes along, and then the roller that compacts it, and within 24 hours you can drive on the surface. And within 72 hours they microfrac it and apply the asphalt. So it does not take very long to get the work done. So Murray has provided everyone with information package that highlights the technical information as well as answers a bunch of questions, and I think there's some pictures as to how the product is applied and the process. Hopefully everybody had some time to read through it, and with that, we'll open the floor to questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Thames.
Yes, Ken, I guess my question for you is Novacrete, is that different from, like, that same product was offered by BKS Distribution a number of years ago, and they were out there, but there's also another company called Altacrete, and is it all the same product, or is this Novacrete something different from what Altacrete and BKS Distribution sent out?
BKS Distribution, that information that was sent out, that product, the Novacrete product, was in all likelihood sent out from us, because BKS Distribution and Novacrete Canada are one and the same. When the company was originally set up, it was set up as BK Distribution. The name has now been changed to Novacrete Canada. With respect to Altacrete, Altacrete is not anything like Novacrete. Altacrete is a soil cement that does not have the same characteristics as Novacrete. It doesn't have the flexibility. It is subject to cracking. And we run across this comparison quite a bit, and this was one of our major stumbling blocks with respect to the NWT government. They had been exposed to Altacrete, and they had dismal success with it. And then we pointed out a couple of projects that had been done in the NWT. I think there was Oak Lake Mine. They did about 8 kilometers of roadway into the mine site itself. And once I pointed out that the major difference between the two products, and the engineering team from the NWT has done an extensive review, as has the province New Brunswick. And in speaking with the head of the New Brunswick Transportation Department earlier today, they are planning on awarding us a fair amount of highway work for the Novacrete product. So there is a very big difference, and it all has to do with the Novacrete product itself.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't explain the actual technical chemical stuff, but one of the things that we do have at our disposal, if we decide to get into this, there's an engineer. She's a fine lady. She's worked all over the world with this product, and she would certainly be available to answer any technical questions that the team might have.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. Moland. I'm quite familiar with soil cement. I've used it. I've worked with it. I'm not impressed with it. So I'm glad to hear this is different. My question would be, you said in your presentation soil samples were sent to Germany for analysis, and then your formula would be based on that. So my question would be, in our particular part of the country, if you got a half a mile of road, you can have soil samples of sandy loam, extremely sandy, and clay. How do you make up for that difference?
The way they address that is quite simple. If you take the proper soil samples, the soil samples are analyzed, and the formula comes back, or the mixture ratios come back with respect to how much Novacrete and cement are applied per square meter. So in wet areas, you would apply a little more Novacrete powder with the soil cement, and in the drier areas, you would apply less Novacrete powder. But the soil, the different soil conditions are not an issue. They have actually used this over marshy, wet, swampy areas to areas in the desert in Saudi. So the product has been used around the world. It's been in existence since 2006. We have plenty of examples and pictures of roads that have been put down in Siberia, and 12 years later, they're in the same condition they were when they were new. So and the second part of the analysis, the use of what the road is going to be used for, or what the parking lot is going to be used for, will also predicate the concentration of the Novacrete mixture. So if it's going to be a heavier use parking lot or roadway, there would be no more Novacrete applied, or in some situations the depth of the milling might have to go down a little deeper. The standard milling depth is 13.5 inches, but it can go down as deep as 36 or 3 feet. And they have done some of that on some of the high-speed rail tracks in Norway.
Mr. Mullen, just further to Councillor Beckerian's ask about the 3 different soil samples on a stretch of roadway, that's a great question. I believe that can happen in a lot of locations, particularly in this area. But does that end result end up being consistent then with whatever conditions you're exposed to, and able to make the whole stretch of roadway consistent as a result?
Absolutely. You won't know that there's a difference in condition.
All right, great, thank you. Another question, did I understand that correctly now that you've had some great success with the Sobeys parking lot, that they're now looking at as an exclusive process to do with the rest of their Sobey parking lot locations?
Yeah, so we have actually done the survey of the Winnipeg distribution center, and the soil samples are being taken. The other 2 distribution centers that they're looking at right now are one is in Montreal, and the second one is in Halifax. And it's the only reason for the delays has been COVID and food services and that type of thing. So they've been sensitive to the whole process, and they have not wanted anybody that shouldn't be on site. So that's been the only delay. The Winnipeg contract was actually awarded to us in 2019, and then it was put on hold once COVID hit at the beginning of 2020. So the answer to your question is yes, we have an arrangement with Sobeys.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Councillor Stravas?
Yes, Your Worship. This is it's kind of intriguing. I assume what you're trying to do here, Mr. Mullen, is replace the gravel, the compacted gravel that goes underneath the asphalt by putting this material there instead. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
Yes. What Novacrete does is it forms the base of the road. It is the stabilized base. You will not have the gravel, and you will not have any issues whatsoever. And it removes the heaving and the potholes and all of that sort of thing. You can put it down. You can just take a gravel road, put the Novacrete on it, and you can leave it. And all you have, and it won't break down, just like a gravel road won't break down when it's first put down. And if you want it to last a little longer, and when I say longer, I'm meaning years and years longer, you put asphalt on top of it.
Mr. Mullen, in a follow-up question to that, you use the term cement stabilization. I have seen the MD of Tabor use a cement stabilization product, but I'm assuming this wouldn't be the same product that they were using on the roadways.
No, it's not. There's a soil stabilization. They call it a soil stabilization cement, and it's a mixture of cement and dirt and stuff. And they put it down, and it gives you a solid base, but it breaks down. Novacrete goes down. It gives you a solid base, but it's flexible, and it's water cannot penetrate the product. So you've got 13 inches of solid base. It's microfract. So the bottom 2 inches of the base are microfract, so it gives it the flexibility to move when there's the shift from the frost and the heaving and that type of thing due to seasonal changes. And it also, the microfracking allows the water to run away from the base of the road underneath. So those are the main differences. There's lots of different products out there that say they're going to stabilize things, but I guarantee you none of them come with a 5-year warranty against cracking.
Mr. Mullen, a question, if you don't mind, Your Worship. So then what you do is then you use existing product, which would be clay, sand, topsoil, mix it with the cement and your crete mixture, and then apply that down. So it would be a combination of those products that forms the base. Is that what I understand?
You are absolutely correct. We do not remove any of the existing ground. That's which makes it beneficial for everybody, because you're not filling up your landfills to start with. But it takes whatever is there, we mill it, which basically you go through, you grind it all up, and then we apply the cement, we apply the Novacrete, then obviously we grade it so that it's to grade. Then the water truck comes along, adds water, and right behind the water truck is the 12,000-pound roller. And 24 hours later, you're driving on it.
Thank you.
This is Brian here from Novacrete, Canada. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Mr. Spielman. Yes, we can.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, when we did Sobeys parking lot in 2018, it got to a point where it got pretty chilly, so we could not put down asphalt. So what we did is we said, oh, whatever, just plow it, run over it all year. And they did that all winter, and it never as much as budgeted. Another thing, we use whatever, like if we come down to do a parking lot, that asphalt that's already down there, that by the time that miller's done with that, it's like powder. So the asphalt and any gravel that's already existing in the prior base is mixed together. And once we mix that together, then we grade it. Then we apply the Novacrete with the cement powder on top, not soil cement. This is cement powder. And then we mill it with water, again, 15.75 inches down on a normal base job. And then we roll it with a 10 to 12 ton roller. We let it sit for 72 hours. You can drive on it within 24 hours, but we let it sit for 72 hours. Then we microcrack it and asphalt it on top of that. So wherever we're allowed to use 20% organic material. So if you've got an old dirt road there, there's got to be somewhere some information on what that dirt road's made out of. So we would take that information and do some soil testing in certain periods of the low area, high area, the hill area, and that's how we would what we would send over to Germany, and they would give us the proper mixtures to go with each and every individual job.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, thank you.
So if there's no other questions, I'll wrap
Sure,
up.
absolutely, Mr. Carter, yes.
You know, if you decide you want to look at an estimate, Brian is willing to come down and do the measurements and you know, at that point maybe meet with town administration or public works just to go over and see you know, what the project looked like. Then we can get you, you know, a little better estimate. Also, from reading in the Taber Times, I understand there's a couple more roads that you're looking at to the trout pond and the waste transfer station. It would definitely be an application for that as well. If you were looking to do that, you know, within a reasonable time frame in the same year, that would probably reduce the overall cost to maybe look at one or two projects at the same time, if that's the way you wish to proceed.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Spiel, and Mr. Mullen for your time and your presentation. I appreciate that very much, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councillor Tams.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Being as this is not a policy decision and within the operational purview of administration, Council directs administration to review the product information provided by Indigenous Concepts and Solutions Incorporated, and that Council accepts the presentation from the delegation for information purposes only.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Bruin?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, through to Mr. Tam. So you want our administration to study this?
Exactly. It's not in our wheelhouse. It's not a policy decision. It's operational.
That's a little bit of problem I had with this. It was coming to us instead of going to our parks and our public works. We know nothing about this, and they should present it to them, and then they present it to us.
Totally agree, and that's why in the motion it covers, and it's within operational purview of administration. It's not our wheelhouse, it's their wheelhouse. And I think if administration wants to look at it further, it's up to them, and if they come back with a recommendation to look at it or not look at it, but it's in administration's wheelhouse, not ours.
Okay, that sounds better. I like it in their wheelhouse. If they choose to investigate, they will.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carry now. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item number 8, media inquiries. Mr. Irwa?
Yes, His Worship. I think we have some questions here from the media. I think there are 3 questions just came in. And Megan, please go ahead and ask these questions.
Council? All right, so these questions come from Stan Ashby of the Taber Times. So there are 3 of them, and they're a little bit long, so
Okay.
we'll just go one by one, I suppose.
Sure.
In the most recent Tabor Times survey, voters were asked if elected officials should be allowed to attend meetings remotely for long periods of time. The majority vote of 72% with 32 respondents indicated no. What are council's thoughts on this?
All right. Any other comments? Councillor Bruin.
I'd like just to make a comment. I honestly take no. The poll in the Tabor Times has no value. Anyone in the world can vote on that poll, so I don't think we can comment on that. It's vote as you wish wherever you live.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Towns.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I happen to agree with Councillor Bruin on that one, but I also would like to add that also within council's thing is we have, due to COVID and a number of other issues that have gone on, we have done our best, but we have allowed, and it was in council's thing to have councillors attend by Zoom or by phone or by electronics. And then in the world we live in today, attending a meeting electronically also means that you are there at the meeting. And I don't think it's a bad thing that we allow remote access to our council meetings for our councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Chavez.
Yes, Your Worship. I just want to make a comment that the federal government allows elected officials to attend cabinet meetings by Zoom, and they've been doing it for almost a year now. So I don't really see the relevance of this question.
Yeah, Councillor Chavez, I agree. Actually, it's been brought up. I believe we have this in policy also, Mr. Roa, to allow for this, and or the MGA this was checked into some time back, that any electronic attendance is completely allowable and totally within any council's right to do so.
I think, His Worship, you are correct there. We go by MGA, and I think the reference there should be, I just pulled one, yes, you're talking, is 199, section 1 and 2 is very, very clear that a council meeting or council committee meeting may be conducted by means of electronic or other communication facilities, and it goes down to qualify. So that one is given, and we'll pass over that relevant section to them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roa. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Brennan.
So you answered the second question. I'll just read it for council's information, but you have answered
Right.
this. Are there policies in place about councillors attending meetings remotely for a long period of time, and or repercussions for councillors if they abuse the practice? So you have answered that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Question number 3.
The last one is, would each councillor be willing to acknowledge if they have attended council meetings while in the Tabor area, or have they been out of the country during the pandemic while attending meetings remotely?
Sir, I'm not sure I understand that. If you could run that by me again. Anyway, I'm not sure that's completely clear on what they're asking there.
He's asking each councillor to, if they're willing to, say whether they've been attending council meetings while they're in the Tabor area, or if they have left the country and are attending council meetings.
So they're looking for clarification on any councillors that may have been attending while out of the country electronically.
They're asking for all the councillors if they're willing to speak for themselves. That's council's choice.
All right. Council, any objection to anybody answering that question?
I'll answer it.
Your Worship?
Councillor Chavez?
I don't see the relevance of this question, because if you're attending a council meeting remotely, does it matter where you are?
Again, that's covered under the MGA. We're totally within our right to do so. So no, I don't know that that's a completely appropriate question. All things considered, unless anybody else disagrees. So I think that's got it covered. Councillor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whether a question is relevant or not, it has a right to be asked, I guess, but for myself, I will not comment.
Right, fair enough. Thank you.
I'm here. That's all I can say.
I think it's easy enough to say, check back on any live streaming taped versions out there as far as members that are in attendance, and members are in attendance either in person or remotely / electronically, again, which is totally within council's right under the MGA, as Mr. Orwa has alluded to. So I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll relay those answers.
Thank you very much. All right. Motion to move into closed session, please. Thank you. Councillor Beckering.
So move, Mr. Mayor, to move
Thank
to
you.
closed session.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And Al, just need to